Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to today's Rest and Story Time. So today we are going to read the next 3 chapters of this Jack and Annie adventure, Twister on Tuesday, because we know that tomorrow is our last day of kindergarten. I can't believe it. I promised I wouldn't cry till tomorrow. So we are going to read 3 chapters today and see what happens in this exciting adventure. Just to recap, in case you forgot, they are now back in the 1870s in the pioneer times in Kansas, where we have read in the book that Kansas is very likely to get lots of twisters and tornadoes. They found a building built out of a hill called a dugout. They discovered the dugout is actually the school, a 1-room schoolhouse. But lucky for them, all of the dugouts have a storm cellar. So hopefully, if the twister comes, Jack and Annie will be safe, but we don't know because we haven't gotten that far in the book yet. So sit back, relax, and let's see what happens today as we join Jack and Annie in Kansas. Chapter 4, Reading Lesson. It was warm and dry inside the schoolhouse. Several oil lamps lit up the darkness. "Class, meet Annie and Jack," the young teacher said. What class? Jack thought to himself. There was only 3 kids there. On one bench sat a small boy and a girl. The boy looked to be about Annie's age. The girl looked a little bit younger. And on the other bench was a tall boy. He was very tough looking. "Welcome to your first day of school," the young teacher said. "Today is your very first day?" said Annie. "Yes, and our first day in the dugout. The family who lived here left for California a week ago," said Miss Neely. Jack and Annie peered around the room. The walls were made of dirt. The floor was made of wood. It was covered by a worn rug. Miss Neely's desk was made from a barrel, and a small coal stove was near her desk. A crate held a water jug, some chalk, and 2 small blackboards. "It's a nice school," Annie said politely. Look at that. That's their whole entire school, with only 3 students. "Thank you. We are very grateful for it," said Miss Neely. "And where do you live?" "Well, actually," Jack started to say, but then he stopped. He didn't know what to say. "Actually, we don't live around here," Annie said. "We're just passing through." "Oh, you must be from the wagon train I saw this morning," Miss Neely said. Annie nodded and Jack smiled. "Good work, Annie," he thought to himself. "We can only stay for a little while," he said. "How exciting for you," Miss Neely said. "Heading west on a wagon train. Where are you going?" "California," Annie said. "California? That's wonderful. Isn't it, class?" Miss Neely asked the others. "Yes, ma'am," the 2 younger children said. The older boy barely nodded his head. "Have you ever been to school before?" Miss Neely asked Annie. "Yes, ma'am. We both know how to read and write. Jack is one of the best readers you'll ever meet." "My, isn't that wonderful, class?" Miss Neely said. "Yes, ma'am," the 2 younger children answered. The older boy gave Jack a mean scowl. "Well, not exactly the best," said Jack modestly. "I'd love to read. I'll read any book I can get my hands on," said Miss Neely. "Me too," said Jack. "Then perhaps you'd like to start off our very first reading lesson of the school year." "Sure," said Jack. "Go sit with Jeb then, and Annie, you can sit with Kate and her brother Will." Will and Kate quickly made room for Annie on their bench, but Jeb did not move over for Jack, not even an inch. Jack barely had any room to sit down. He took a deep breath and sat on the edge of the bench. Miss Neely handed Jack a book. "This is our only reader. It's called the Mcguffrey Reader. Please read the first 2 lines of the poem on page 50. "Oh, sure, ma'am," said Jack. He turned to page 50, pushed his glasses into place, then he read out loud, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." "Very good," said Miss Neely. "Now, please pass the reader to Jeb." Jack handed the book over to Jeb. "Jeb, please read the next 2 lines," said Miss Neely. The older boy cleared his throat. Then he stared at the page. "Maybe Jeb can't read," Will said in a kind, sweet voice. Uh-oh, he doesn't look very nice. Jeb's face got all red. "Be quiet, Will," he muttered. "Oh," Miss Neely said, looking confused. Jack felt very sorry for Jeb. He wanted to give him some help. So without moving his lips, he whispered, "Up above the world so high, like a diamond." Jeb turned around towards Jack with an angry look on his face. "I don't need your help," he shouted. "Now, Jeb, don't get mad. And Jack, please don't give people the answers," said Miss Neely. "I'm sorry," said Jack. Miss Neely sighed and pulled out her pocket watch. She looked very tired. "Why don't you all go outside and have your noon meal? I'll stay in and get ready for our next lesson." Miss Neely opened the door of the hut, and Annie, Kate, and Will bounced up from their seats and started cheerfully walking out of the schoolroom. Jack turned around to Jeb. "I'm sorry for what happened." But Jeb didn't say a word. He just glared at him. "Come on, Jack. Kate wants us to eat with them," said Annie. Jack quickly hurried out the door and never once turned back to look at Jeb. Uh-oh, that's not very nice. Chapter 5, Bully. Uh-oh. The air outside was strangely still. There were dark clouds hovering in the distance. "A storm is coming," said Will. "We have to eat quickly before it starts to rain," said Kate. She and Will sat down on the grass. Annie and Jack sat next to them. Will opened up a small little burlap sack and took out 4 lumpy objects. They looked like dark rocks. "Hey, look! There's enough for each of us," said Kate happily. "One of what?" asked Annie. "Sweet potatoes," said Will. He gave a potato to Kate, Annie, and Jack. "Oh, no thank you. We don't want to take your lunch," said Jack. "Oh, please, we have enough. Keep it." "Keep it? What do we do with it?" Annie asked, holding it up in the air. Kate started laughing. "You eat it! Here, just bite it, just like this." Kate and Will bit into their sweet, cold potatoes as if they were apples. "Oh, okay, cool," said Annie. She took a big bite out of her potato, too. But Jack just looked at his. He didn't really feel like eating a cold, brown potato. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Jeb sitting all by himself. The big kid didn't seem to have any food to eat for lunch. Jack thought maybe he could try one more time to be his friend. "Hey, Jeb, I'm not very hungry. Would you like my sweet potato?" "Oh, well, that's being very nice and kind." What do you think Jeb's going to say? Jeb gave a mean look to Jack. "I could have brought my own lunch if I wanted to." Oh, sure," said Jack. But Jeb just narrowed his eyes. "Are you making fun of me again? I'm warning you. Do it one more time and I'm going to fight you." Jack couldn't believe it. This kid took everything he said the wrong way. Jack wasn't trying to make him mad. He wanted to be friends. "Hey, you leave my brother alone. You're nothing but a big bully, Jeb," said Annie. "Annie, stay out of this," said Jack. But Jeb just laughed. Then he stood up and went back into the schoolhouse. Now Jack was angry. He hoped they would find the writing so they could leave soon. Will must have read Jack's mind. "It's okay, Jack. Don't worry about him. He's never been to school before." "Oh, so maybe he's embarrassed," said Annie. "How come he's never gone to school?" asked Jack. "Well, because he has to work in the fields all the time," said Will. "I heard him tell Miss Neely he had to walk 5 whole miles just to get here today. It shows that he really wants to come to school." "Wow, how far did you guys have to walk?" asked Annie. "Only 2 miles." 2 miles? It must be lonely living out here," said Annie. Will and Kate nodded their head. "Do you live in a sod house?" "Well, we used to," answered Will, "but it's always dirty. So our pa just built us a new log cabin. He cut down some trees near the creek. Then he built the cabin by hand, all by himself," said Kate. Before Annie or Jack could ask another question, a big rumble of thunder cracked in the sky, and rain began falling fast and hard. Everyone jumped up. "Quickly, quickly, come in," Miss Neely called out. They ran back inside as the wind slammed the door shut behind them with a bang. Uh-oh. Chapter 6. Grasshopper Attack. Grasshopper attack? Question mark. Inside the lamplit hut, it was dry and cozy. Jack sat back on his bench. He did not dare look back at Jeb. "It's time for our writing lesson now," Miss Neely said. "I'm going to give you each a slate and a pen." She handed out the slates. They looked like a small blackboard set in a wooden frame. Next, she gave everyone a slate pen. It looked like a very tiny piece of chalk. Miss Neely opened up the reader. While you were eating your noon meal, I copied a poem from the book. Now I would like you to copy it." Miss Neely held up her board for the students to see. "'Tis a lesson you should heed. Try, try again. If at first you don't succeed, try, try again." Jack quickly started copying down the words. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Jeb writing very slowly. It took the older boy a very long time to only write down the letter T. So Jack slowed down too. He didn't want Jeb to get mad and think he was showing off. All of a sudden, they could hear the loud thumping sound from outside. See? So kind of like how we write on the smartboard and we copy it down sometimes, it's how she's teaching them too. It sounded like someone was throwing stones against the roof. "Oh no, it's a grasshopper attack!" shouted Kate, covering her head. "Grasshopper attack! Grasshopper attack!" cried Will, covering his head. "Be calm, everybody, it's okay," said Miss Neely. "What's a grasshopper attack? What are they talking about?" Jack wondered. Even Jeb seemed worried. As Miss Neely started walking towards the door, Jeb shouted, "Don't open it! They're going to come in!" Has everyone gone crazy? How can grasshoppers hurt anybody? They're harmless, Jack thought. Miss Neely opened the door and looked out. A moment later, she came back and closed the door. "It's okay. It's only hailstones." "Hailstones? What's that?" "Hailstones, a small piece of frozen rain. They fall to the earth during a thunderstorm," Miss Neely explained. "But why did Will and Kate yell grasshopper attack?" "Oh, because last spring, the grasshoppers did attack us," Miss Neely told them. "Oh yes, millions and millions and millions of them fell out of the sky. It looked like a big shiny cloud," said Will. "They covered everything, every inch of the ground, and they ate all of our crops. Our turnips, our fruit trees, our watermelons. They even ate our clothes and our bed sheets," said Kate and Will. "Yuck," said Annie. "Oh man," Jack said. He had never heard of a grasshopper attack before. "It was very scary, but remember, we replanted and everybody helped everyone else," Miss Neely told them. Kate and Will nodded. "See, even though it was scary, we have to hold on to the good memories and let go of the bad ones." "Yes, ma'am," said Kate. Everyone was quiet for a moment until the sound of the hailstones died away. "Let's go back to our lesson," said Miss Neely. They all returned to their writing. Even working as slowly as he could, Jack finished first. He showed his copy of the poem to Miss Neely. "Good work, Jack. We can all learn from these words, can't we?" "Yes, ma'am. We certainly can learn from them." "Jack, this is it! Something to learn! Something to learn!" Annie shouted. Miss Neely looked confused, but Jack smiled. He knew exactly what Annie was talking about. They found it. The special writing, something to learn. "Excuse me, ma'am, but I'm afraid we have to go." "Oh, so soon?" said Miss Neely. "Yes, we have to go back to our parents now." "May I take my slate with us?" said Jack. "Oh yes, please do. Use it on your trip to California. Keep practicing your writing." "Thank you, Miss Neely. We learned a lot from you today." "I'm glad you had a chance to come to school. Goodbye and good luck to you both," said Miss Neely. "Good luck to you too," said Annie. "Goodbye," said Will and Kate. "Goodbye," answered Jack and Annie. As they went out the door, Jack glanced back at Jeb. He felt sorry for him. He tried one last time to be his friend. "Goodbye, Jeb." But Jeb didn't even look at him. So Jack gently closed the door to the schoolhouse. He breathed a sigh of relief. He was glad to get away from Jeb's anger. "Hey, Jack, this is weird. Look at the sky." As Jack turned away from the schoolhouse, he caught his breath. He couldn't believe his eyes. The sky did look weird. Really, really weird. Uh-oh. Chapter 7. Twister! Oh no. If you remember in our weather unit, the sky turns into a really dark but interesting color when a twister is nearby. Do you think that's what's happening to Jack and Annie right now? Do you think a twister's about to come right where they are? What are they gonna do? They're not close to the treehouse. Let me know what you think, and tomorrow, check us out back here, and we will finish the last 3 chapters of this book and find out what happens on our last Jack and Annie adventure. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you liked today's story, and I will see you guys tomorrow.